This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Raleigh, state capital of North Carolina. We are joined by Susan Kluttz. She is the Secretary of the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. That is a new department in this state.
Yes,
I want to get a sense from you what this new department does as compared to what you had been doing before.
Right. 3 years ago, when Governor McCrory was elected, he appointed me as Secretary of the Department of Cultural Resources, which is arts, history, libraries in the state.
Wonderful department by itself.
Best department in state government, passionate employees, very exciting job. After a study by his budget office, efficiency study for 2 years, it was determined that it would be great if they would add natural resources to us, which included our two science museums, the North Carolina Zoo, 3 aquariums, and 35 state parks in North Carolina.
Wow.
And so he recommended that to the legislature, and they were very enthusiastic about it. And not only gave us those 4 divisions, but also the Clean Water Management Trust Fund and the Natural Heritage Trust Fund. So it more than doubled our department.
I'm rendered speechless. If I consider those early institutions that you mentioned, the zoos, maybe the parks, that kind of makes sense. Clean water, that's a different beast.
Well, it sort of goes along with state parks and natural resources, but you know, we felt that really this made sense because in cultural resources, our mission is to support and encourage and protect the treasures of North Carolina, and we consider the natural resources to be just as much treasures of the state. So it's very natural for us to be taking them, and we're very excited about it, and the transfer is working very well.
And I know that over this last year, before the transfer was announced, you had traveled up and down the state. I've never seen anything like it in my life in support of a piece of legislation to bring back, and that's the key, bring back the historic preservation tax credits.
Correct.
Why am I saying bring back?
Bring back because they expired at the end of last year. And the legislature had planned not to bring them back because of a philosophy that they wanted to do away with all tax credits for tax reform. The governor felt differently. He felt that this really was very important to the state for economic development, job creation, tourism, and he felt so strongly about it that he asked me if I would have my department work with the Department of Commerce, which we did for 6 months to come up with a new plan that was more efficient for these tax credits.
And let's talk about that because look, it's one thing to extend an existing program, but once the program dies, to resurrect it, that's a Herculean feat.
Well, we were told it was impossible. I had legislators tell me to my face it would never happen, that no matter what I did with this, no matter how far we got, they would kill it in the end. That was a promise.
But when the Secretary travels to how many locations?
Well, I made 73 stops since the first of the year in 52 different cities and towns.
And you made it clear that this was your mission.
Absolutely.
Why? What is it about historic preservation tax credits that makes you convinced, makes you believe that this program had to be salvaged?
There were several reasons. I had been involved in it in Salisbury personally for 30 years. I was mayor for 14 years. I heard it said over and over that renovations in downtowns would not have happened without these tax credits. We had seen $1.67 billion of private investment since the 90s, since the state credits came in, piggybacking on the federal credits in the 90s, in 90 out of 100 counties. Also, after going through the recession too and losing so much manufacturing and textiles and furniture, we had so many buildings that were vacant. And the numbers just don't make sense without these tax credits. I knew it and I felt very strongly about it.
And you mentioned the federal program, and it seems to me, when analyzing what ultimately passed, lining up with the federal program probably was that secret sauce that allowed you to move forward. Is that a fair analysis?
Right. The federal credits were there, but the state credits still they really weren't enough in this state.
But as I understand it, though, what's happened is that for improvements to income producing historic buildings, there's a 25% credit. For non-income producing, the credit was dropped from 30 to 20%, which is the same as the federal credit. And so was that persuasive that you were able to comply or at least line up at some level?
Not really. I think what was important was that in our study we brought down percentages. We put caps on large projects. We gave more budget predictability to the program itself. I think the state legislature thought that the federal credits were enough, but really we knew they weren't. The governor knew that they weren't, and charged me with going out on this tour. And actually what the tour did was it brought awareness. I called it an awareness tour. I realized that most people in North Carolina didn't know what historic tax credits were. And people don't ever get too excited about something that has the word tax in it. And that if they could just be aware of the wonderful successes that had happened in their downtowns because of these credits, and we could go into these towns and we could celebrate the successes and bring awareness to it through the media. The media was a tremendous partner.
And that's what I must ask. If I can say this, tax credits, like you said, not the most sexy of programs, and when people engage in letter writing campaigns, it's usually not about tax credits.
No, it's not.
Right, and so how did you galvanize folks to convince that legislator who looked in your eye and said, this is never going to pass? What went right?
Well, we had a pretty incredible idea, which was we put together a coalition of groups that knew it was important. Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, the League of Municipalities, the Association of County Commissioners, Preservation North Carolina, and we called professional groups to come in the first of the year. If you're interested, if this is important to you, come meet with me. I was amazed at who showed up. State associations of architects, bankers, contractors, 2 local chamber of commerces, downtown developers, economic developers, realtors, city planners. It went on and on. So we had a huge coalition working together. That was one part of it. The second part was the tour that I began, that I didn't know would last so long. I had no idea that it would last for months and months and that would cover so many cities. But what we did was we worked through mayors. We went in and said, let's come in and celebrate your greatest success from state credits, and then let's talk about potential. Do you have potential? Well, every single place had potential.
So what happened? Did the mayors contact the state legislators?
No. Well, they did, but,
so
the most important thing that happened was that all these groups coming together and encouraged the public to get interested in this.
So they did talk about it.
And so it really was, the media was huge for us. Television, radio, newspapers. We had, since the first of the year, nearly 1,800 media stories.
Wow.
And there was so much pressure, I think, put on the legislators from their hometowns.
So they did feel it. They felt the pressure.
Oh, they heard it. They heard it and felt it very, very clearly.
And as I understand it, this program is not going to be phased in. It's available as we speak. Is that right?
Well, no, it will begin the 1st of January. So we did lose 1 year, but it will come in the 1st of January. It is in effect till 2020. I had a developer, as of today, I had a message from a developer say we're coming back to North Carolina. We have been flooded with really requests from developers to hear about this all over the country.
Tell me about the moment when you heard this program has survived, it's been resurrected, and it's going to be put back in place.
Well, it was pretty incredible because I honestly didn't know. It passed overwhelmingly in March in the House, in March. And then we went all the way until the end of September. It was never heard in the Senate. Senate leadership did not hear it in the Senate. It became a negotiating tool at the end, and I did not know until 10 minutes before it was announced to the public that it had worked. And one of our challenges was residential, which was because it's called non-income producing. Legislators didn't understand why should we put state money into something.
I want to congratulate you. She is Susan Kluttz. She is the Secretary of Natural and Cultural Resources. I'm Pomerance. It's Turner Local Edition.